I think it'll be a one-off. Yeah, most of my shows are attached to one idea, so I think it was pretty much the Toulouse-Lautrec show. It came about during COVID last year as I was looking through this book called The Stars of Paris, which was all 30 of his posters. And I went to the Toulouse-Lautrec online catalogue of every single work he ever made. And I just started researching his work and I kind of fell in love with it again. And my parents reminded me, and I had repressed this or just forgotten, that when we were growing up, we had a huge, and it's funny you should mention in the talk, the Divan Japonais, because we had a huge picture of in the lounge and then we had Brouin in my bedroom. And so that led me to believe maybe his work's been forming my painting style all along with these flat colors, the primary choices, the black outlines, these bold graphic styles. So it was a big shock to me to think that he'd been there all along. The whole show sold out apart from the comedian, the blue comedian. Since then, I've done a few more of the upper class gentleman with hat. Yeah, it pretty much sold out.
How do you differentiate from Toulouse-Lautrec?
You've got to do it very carefully so that you celebrate the artist, but also make your own comment. Well, firstly, when I did that research, I was quite shocked at the amount of materials he worked on. So everything from cardboard painting. When you think of Toulouse-Lautrec, you think of posters, but of course that was only 30. Then there's the 1,100 paintings, the 5,000 drawings. You realize that there's such a depth of practice there, and it gave me great freedom for me to think, well, you know what? I can actually completely change this, and because his style changes a lot. So with that, I started cropping his images because he usually paints a scene, whether it's La Goulou and her sister looking at the men, and I'll just take the two women and remove the men, or I've removed the hairdresser in the background and I've just painted the lady getting her hair done. The scale has changed, and I started changing the palette completely. The comedian behind me is painted entirely just with blue.
Tell me more about your career development. Did you always had that style of primary colors, ball paintbrush, and drip paints?
Not very early on. One of my art teachers said, look, your work's about surface. Don't worry so much about what you're painting. I pulled back the corrugated cardboard. I cut it up. I glued bits over. I collaged it. And then from that, I started getting into this, what I call the assemblage process, which is using all kinds of different materials. I was using old signs, plywood, anything I could find, and that would all get put down on a board, and that would become my canvas. So, and I guess you could see that in those industrial landscapes and the Archibald works. And then on top of that would go my subject matter, and it would never be the case that what I was making in the background, my construction and the actual subject matter, I wouldn't premeditate that so that the actual material would line up with the image. It would just be random. And from that, I eliminated color. I just started using grays and then primaries and blacks. And then the pegboard came in, and that has the holes in it. And that was kind of like a nod to pop art as well, with the repetition and the Lichtenstein thing. And although I never really meant it to be a Lichtenstein thing, for me, it was always back to what my original teacher had said, which is it's just playing with surface. It's a different way of dealing with the surface. I just wanted there to be energy. For me, I wanted it to feel the energy of the Lautrec posters explode to life.
Tell us more about your family. When you look at Toulouse-Lautrec's life, his dad was definitely not supportive. And how about you?
My family are extremely supportive. It was never a case of if I was allowed to be an artist. It was just a matter of taking it seriously. My mum's a great poet, writer, musician. My dad's a great musician. And my brother started The Chaser. He's a writer. He's a great musician. There's musicians and artists all throughout my family. Yeah, I'm finishing 2 books at the moment. One is called 50 Portraits. I've been working with Artist Profile magazine, and they're writing about 200 words per portrait. And it's actually pretty funny how it came about. When I was last in the Archibald Prize in 2019, the guy who was my sitter said, "Oh, have you ever been in the Archibald Prize before?" And it was my 7th time, and I was like, I better put together a book of my portraits, because clearly no one knows I've ever done any. So I better do some more. The second book is a bigger book with Thames and Hudson, and that is the first 20 years of my career, and that's going to be coming out as well next year.
In terms of artworks,
what's coming up next? Next. Well, it was Sydney Contemporary Art Fair, and that's been cancelled. And that was going to be a show called Heroes and Villains, based on heroes, anti-heroes, villains from cinema history. And that will probably become a solo show for my Melbourne gallery next year. I was so thrilled to have the work on the facade earlier in June and July and August. I really want to thank Robert Tolan and Tolan Architects and Alliance Francaise for making that happen. And I was just really proud to see the work 4 meters high on the street. It looked amazing. The City of Sydney got on board to approve it. I think it was a first for them to use a new artist that wasn't in their approved list. So that was quite historic as well. The other thing I'd say is that our family and myself and my partner, Isabel, we have a long association with France, and can't wait to get back there when everything opens up.